So I saw a post you did on your LinkedIn 1 year ago, and you mentioned a lot of things, but one thing that really catch my attention was the fact that you wanted to go net zero, and I wanted to understand how are you planning to achieve this?
I think first thing that as a recycling company you can think of generating or going towards net zero or reducing your carbon footprint is you get most likely end of life batteries, and those end of life batteries usually have a rest charge of 10 to 30%. So they have like 10 to 30% charge. So the first thing you do to act safely on batteries is to discharge them. So the first thing we always think about is discharging the energy from vehicle batteries, and then with that discharged energy, charging an energy storage that then gives the energy either to the grid or feeds it back to the facility. That's one thing you can always do as a recycler, and there are good solutions outside, and I think you should do that. And another thing that we're working on with a lot of people is one big topic that you have, which takes a lot of energy, is cutting open the battery packs, removing the glues, having like heat treatment to remove the glues because all the battery packs and modules are stick together, and it's really bad designed. So one option that you have in order to become better at that as well, and also reduce operation costs in recycling, is of course recycling friendly battery design, which means that you use water-based adhesives to just wash it off and you can just remove the adhesions, or you use no adhesion at all and go with more design issues to be able to easily open the packs, get out the cells, replacing the cells, let the battery work again, so that most of the parts of the battery don't become waste, but you can reuse it all the time.
Okay. Okay, and I read something you also write in your LinkedIn, which was we're not stopping in just recycling batteries. You want to cover the whole cycle. What do you refer to the whole cycle? What will be that whole cycle of the battery?
Of course, there's battery manufacturing, so you're mining the critical minerals, you're putting them into cathode material, anode material, then you put the cathode and anode material to the collector foils, then you create the anode, the cathode, you stick that together to a cell module goes to pack, and then it's used, and then it comes to us, so we get the pack. And what we do always with the first step is we're analyzing the battery. We're doing a diagnosis if there is what is the state of health of the battery? The state of health of the battery means how much rest capacity is there. You know it from your phone, so you look into your phone, how much rest capacity is there, 90%, 95%, because there it's critical to know that if a battery is end of life in a mobility sector, so if it comes from a car or a scooter, it doesn't mean that the battery is dead. Most of the time, the companies are replacing the batteries at around 80% state of health, because at around 70%, you have something that is called knee point, after which the capacity drops drastically. When that happens, of course, the customers will be angry, and the OEM doesn't want the customer to see that, so it replaces the battery. However, if that is the case, that's why we do the diagnosis. If we discover that battery still has a state of health for around 80%, you can still use this battery as an energy storage for a stationary system. Means like in a car, you put the pedal, it increases the peak, you put the brake, and it goes that. And that is the main reason why the capacity is dropping. But in a stationary energy storage, like at home or for a solar panel, you have a constant current. So the health can be maintained much longer. So you can still use that 5 to 6 years in an energy storage. So that's what we discovered the first thing. And what we always aim for is we don't want to recycle before it's reused, if it's reusable, because that is also another big topic to reduce the carbon footprint, of course.
Okay, so you say it's more stable. You know, when you use it in a car battery, it lasts around 10 to 15 years. That's what they say. Then when they take it out from the car, you can use it in energy storage for another 5 years. So it will be a total of 20 years using the same battery before we need to recycle it, right?
Yes, I mean, there it was really controversial. So in the beginning and in each report, few years ago, you could see like, yeah, batteries in cars remain for 6 years, 7 years, but we see first batteries that are living for 10 to 12 years already. For example, BMW has a really stable battery system where they have already batteries that live for 15 years. And the strategy for car manufacturers is always to adjust the lifetime of the battery to the car itself. And a car lifetime usually is 21.7 years. So already car manufacturers are working on getting the battery to 20 years to reach the state of health of 80. And then you still have 5 to 6 to 7 years, depending on the chemistry of the battery in energy storages. So it could even be imaginable that in the next years we'll talk about a lifetime of 30 years,
Okay.
if that continues to be improved.
Wow. Okay, so since they started making batteries, do you think they were thinking about these batteries were supposed to be recycled, or you think they actually didn't thought about that at the beginning, or why didn't they make batteries recyclable or easy to recycle?
I mean, the number one topic for batteries in cars in the first years of electric vehicles was always range. We need range, we need range, we need range. To get range, you need to pack a lot of energy in the same room because you want to have as lightweight as possible with as much energy as possible. And because you do that, and that is the number one aim, you don't care about recycling friendliness. So you put everything together, you try to squeeze everything, you try to put a lot of energy into the same place, you use glues, you pack it all together. Because if you go for a recycling friendly design, you need specific surroundings, you need casings, you need something that is demontable and detachable to put it out and stuff like that. So you will lose a lot of room. If you lose room, you lose range. So that was not the number one thing. But now, since the last 2-3 years, where ESG became a really big topic and recycling friendliness became a really big topic, and European Union actually is pushing for eco-friendly design, now it becomes a topic. So now there's a lot of investigations. Okay, how can we get as much energy as possible in the same room and be recycling friendly at the same time? So I think this is a pretty new development.
So you think that's being pushed by the regulations?
Yes, I think so.
And then how can battery makers collaborate with recyclers to improve sustainability?
So in order to improve, the recyclers usually, the entire market right now, as you know, is focusing on shredding and crushing those batteries. There are companies that are shredding even battery packs, like entire car battery packs, which is decreasing the purity of the material. But most of the best recyclers are going down to the cell and then shred the cell. So they have knowledge about the pack. They know what is harming in the recycling. So what we need to do, and what I think is really important for recyclers to do, is to taking a documentation of each recycling steps that they do. And then what we have on our side, of course, is also we're going down to the cell, opening the cell, separating the inner material. So we have also a lot of data. How a cell is made up, what are the steps while dismantling those batteries, what are the difficulties, and with that protocols and with that documentation, battery manufacturers could get that and work on a easier design and think about how to easier repair it, make it repair friendly, make it recycle friendly. But for that, you need a lot of documentation. So recyclers need to document a lot, and then the information needs to be exchanged with the battery manufacturer, of course.
And do you think designing batteries for recycling increase the cost, or could it actually make sense, like economic sense at the end of the cycle?
That's a good question. I think it will increase the cost of the battery and the investment. But I think looking at it from a lifetime perspective, it will decrease the cost because you have a lot of parts that are reusable. For example, today, if a module is damaged in an energy storage and only the cell was broken, you need to replace the entire module. But then in future, you would just take out the module, pull out the cell that is broken, put a new cell in, and the module lives, and only the cell gets recycled. So I think, yes, there is a higher initial investment, but I think from the lifetime, it will decrease the operational costs and the maintenance costs, of course.
And what innovations are on the horizon that could make batteries more eco-friendly? Can you name any projects you know or admire?
I mean, we from Novocycle, we invested in Volta. That is an Australian company that is focusing on recycling friendly and repair friendly battery designs for stationary energy storage systems. And at the same time, we have some development agreements with other companies where we're working on recycling friendly battery designs for the mobility sector. And I know that in the market, there's also other projects that are focusing on that recycling repair friendliness, especially in Europe, where sustainability is a really big topic. So there is a movement. Let's see how long it will take for the batteries to actually enter the market.
I just sent you to the chat something you wrote in one of your LinkedIn posts, which I really struggled to understand. You said, numbers don't lie. Novocycle's output boasts 99.5% material with only 0.5 impurities, outperforming traditional process with a mere 26%. Is that the way you say mere?
Mere, yeah, mere.
Can you explain me what are you trying to say with this?
Okay, let's take it from the battery. You shred it, you have black mass. Black mass is 60% of the entire battery from the weight.
Okay.
And then in this 60%, you only have 27% critical minerals, which is then the lithium, the nickel, the manganese, and the cobalt.
Okay.
So you're actually recovering 95% of that 26%. The rest becomes residue. The rest is trash.
Okay, so that's kind of the greenwashing you were trying to talk about.
100%.
Okay.
And by now, there's a new word which is called greenhushing. You heard that?
No, what is it?
It is about startups that actually are green and actually are doing good things, but they are silent about it because they're fearing that they will be accused of greenwashing. So that's why they say they're greenhushing.
Do you feel there's some kind of that greenhushing in Novocycle or no?
We can definitely communicate much more, 100%. And I know you're ready for it, and the time will come, hopefully.
Okay. Well, Taha, that was basically all I wanted to ask. Anything you want to say about eco-friendly battery designs, or anything you want to add?
We need more of it. And for that, we need more collaboration. So I hope that at some point we have much more collaboration rather than competitiveness in the market. And all the big players, I mean, there are two big names, which I don't need to name, which are dominating the entire market. Sorry for the balloons. And I just hope that they work on that and really push forward for a recycling friendly design.
Two big names who are producing batteries, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you hope these companies collaborate with eco-friendly design projects who are already working on making electric vehicles and batteries itself more recyclable in a way?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you've always said it, collaboration is key in this industry.
Exactly, 100%. Because we're still in the beginning. And there's a lot of things to discover. Let's see.
Bueno, Taha, let's stop recording.
Bueno.
Gracias.
Gracias, amigo.